There is so much wargaming to do out there of all different types. Hex Encounter, miniatures, computer gaming. So much wargaming to do out there, and yet I still think there should be a lot more online content to go along with that. Online content to expand that gaming experience that you get on the table or on the screen. This is thinking of playing October War, Doctrine and Tactics in the Yom Kippur Conflict, 6-24 October 1973. So let's get to a brief intro. So after all these years, all this video recording, all these videos, I would think I would be a little bit better at these intros, but maybe only a little. This is October War is actually not a typical case in that I can say I've actually played it before. So I'm not saying, as I normally do, that I've never played it before. So no, this is just a tiny bit. Actually, I pulled this out fairly early on in my Hex Encounter wargaming, and so that was a few years ago. It was actually about a half a year or so before I started making the videos. So so there were no videos of that off the shelf phase, I guess. Let's see. So I played a few scenarios part the way through. I don't think I even finished a whole scenario, but I did play a few times partially through a scenario. I do feel like I got kind of the basics down, and I remember I really liked what I saw. So now I didn't have much to compare it to, which is what I'll remark on in a minute here, or for a few minutes here. So I remember that I really liked what I saw, and I knew that I would be getting back to this game. So here it is. So thinking of playing October War, and I also remember that my impressions of the game were so good, so positive, that I did solely on that experience of trying out October War Solitaire, working my way through it, again, very early in my Hex Encounter wargaming, but it did prompt me to seek out and find a very good condition, unpunched copy of Mech War 77, and I'm glad that I did that. And I don't think I would have done that if I hadn't liked what I saw in October War. Now I know that there's a generational design difference there, but I think after I figured out that design ideas from October War could be retrofitted to Mech War 77, that's why I knew that I would probably like Mech War 77. Okay, now for intro of October War here. Yeah, at the time, when I took October War off the shelf, I had two other platoon scale systems to compare this to, quite different, actually. So at that time, early in my Hex Encounter wargaming, I had experience with Panzer Grenadier, very frustrating, which I'll explain, and then Sands of War, which at that time was really frustrating. Now, Sands of War I worked through, came to like. Panzer Grenadier I still haven't. I will try again. Panzer Grenadier, I don't know, maybe I'll never stop trying to get Panzer Grenadier, but I can say I still haven't gotten Panzer Grenadier. But at that time, let's see, Panzer Grenadier. So let me give a little bit of experience of those two other systems, and then what happened with October War, which was just really refreshing in a positive way. Okay, so Panzer Grenadier, it should have been, it was a well-developed system by that time. There are not a few people online claiming in writing that it's a simple system, easy to get into, some people even say intuitive. And by reading the rules, I agreed. I could sit around, spend all day reading and rereading the rules and say, yeah, this is great. This is so polished and everything. And yet, when I played Panzer Grenadier, then I would start going in a scenario. Okay, the first few formation activations, no problem. Everything's moving along. Get some firing in, maybe a couple of assaults, and then what would happen then is a specific situation would always come up. And that was my experience back then. Hopefully I can get through this. But back then it's like a particular situation would come up. And by the way, it's not that the rules didn't cover that situation. It's that the rules produced confusion as to how you resolve this situation. It was so frustrating because it was like, there's no way that this game situation could not have come up before, and there's no way that these rules are not meant to cover this situation. And yet it was very, very frustrating to figure out what on earth was intended. Anyways, so that's Panzer Grenadier. Sands of War was different, of course. Those rules are so brief, so incredibly brief that they left me feeling, at that time, like I was missing something. Now I worked through that to the point where I could say, oh yeah, okay, so these really are just like almost a rules set in outline. And I kind of accepted the fact, okay, some things are not going to be covered. And so just use the principles of the design to work through this stuff, and actually, even with the brevity of the rules, many things actually were covered if you weren't looking for answers spelled out to every question that comes up in your playing. Bottom line is, when I loosened up my play, my grip on the playing of the game, when I loosened up and relaxed, basically when I adopted a relaxed playing approach to the Sands of War, it worked. It really did work, but that was later than what I'm talking about, than the time period I'm talking about. Okay, so having come from those two systems, like October War was like a last-ditch chance at platoon scale. But I remember October War being a breath of fresh air of like, this is clear. A lot of important stuff is covered, fairly straightforward, black and white. And I know, or at least I have a good feeling for why it's designed the way it is, and I agree with that design approach. Okay. So let's see. Okay, I guess I'm going to talk about the counters themselves. So some of the counters, like this M3. So this M3 is nicely die cut. Actually, now that I see, maybe that's a little narrow, but anyways, the information on the counter, nicely die cut. And I think of the infantry as being the worst example of this, so let me see if I can. So there's some pretty bad, there's some pretty bad, oh, look at that, the Israelis. Huh, okay, I didn't realize that the Israelis are fine. So it's the where is it? So it's the, yeah, here's an example. So it is the the Arabs. Here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. So you have these Arab, and again, I think of the infantry because, well, let's yep, I'm gonna go ahead. Yeah, I mean, here's the. Yeah, that's okay. So here's the BTR platoon, BTR unit. That's okay. I mean, obviously it's off-centered, but it's perfectly fine. So this is the BTR unit carrying the infantry, and that infantry is horrible. I mean, This is 108, was it 118? And the 8's completely cut off. This is 7 from the 117. I mean, just horrible die cut, horrible die cutting. Never mention the fact, not to mention the fact that it's backwards die cut. Let's not even talk about that. So pretty bad. Pretty bad. And my point about saying that is that I believed I would like this game so much, I actually bought a second copy. And the second copy is not quite as bad, but it's exactly the same problem. First of all, backwards die cut. And look at that. Isn't that cool? That's pretty cool. But we won't look at that now. SPI, was that SPI response card? But, here, it's the same problem. Right here, I looked because see right there, it's right there in the same place too. See the Arab 117 infantry, 118 infantry, and 119 and 116, 115. No, okay, so it's really just there. But I'm infantry, so get the infantry die cutting right. Yeah, actually, all the rest is okay. But the point is, it's the exact same problem in a whole separate copy of the game. So I didn't succeed there in trying a second purchase. But anyways, that's that. Okay, let's look at the scenario.